Absolutely. This wasn't just off the board. This was off whatever comes after the board. I mean, to pick up a guy that has no NHL experience at all is very unflyer-like. It'll be interesting to see here if this is the right move or not, just purely based on the fact that he has no NHL coaching experience.
Not only is it non-flyer-like, how rare is it for a college coach in the NHL to go right from college? You don't see it in baseball all that much. Very rarely in basketball and football you see it a little bit, but not all that much. But in hockey, how rare of a move is to go get a college coach and put him right behind your bench?
It's only the third time that it's happened in history. 4 if you count Herb Brooks, who went from college to coaching that Miracle on Ice team, then he went to Switzerland and then came to the NHL. So there were a couple stops in between there. But to just go from the NHL, or from the NCAA to the NHL, rather, for it to be only the third time, and for the shelf life of NHL coaches, I mean, I don't have the exact number, but there have to have been, in the history of the sport, more coaches in the NHL by a large margin than the NBA or the NFL or Major League Baseball. So for all of those coaches to have come through, and for this to have only been the third time it's ever happened, is incredibly rare. What
does that say about the NHL game? We heard today that North Dakota plays a very pro style. They talked about fast speed. They want more speed. The Eagles went and got Chip Kelly. That was kind of an outside-the-box thing. They were the spread. Was that going to work? You're starting to see more college football on Sunday. Are you going to see the game? Is this a sense to you that the NHL game is evolving a little bit and that you're going to see new things implemented?
The difference is, to me, Chip Kelly was kind of a brand, right? So he brought on all this sports science stuff and all this outside-the-box thinking. This guy in Dave Hakstol is just a very regimented, very stern coach who is kind of the opposite of what Craig Berube was, where he was a player's coach. He would get on guys if they needed that kind of attention, but he wasn't a yeller and a screamer. This guy, just his look pierces you, right through the head when he starts staring at you. Because I asked a question about, whether he was it was a good move for the Flyers. Were interested in getting new blood in there, and he gave me this look that was like, whoa, boy. I would hate to be in that locker room and just turn the puck over in a tie game or something like that. So I think the difference is that this guy is just very green to the NHL, and he may have played that style of hockey at North Dakota. And I understand that that's a very good NCAA program. It's still not the NHL.
Dave, somebody asked a question on the show earlier about, do you think this was a yes man, that this was somebody? I can't get that feeling at all, especially if he, as reports are out there saying he turned down this job a couple of times. It seems to me that this was the guy that they targeted. So, number one, do you think this was a guy, a yes man type of guy? And number two, do you get the indication that this was the guy, that there was nobody else really in the ballpark?
It's tough to say that there was nobody else that was considered. I mean, there were so many coaches out there that had NHL experience, and there's a couple more that are, even though we're in mid-May here, are expected to possibly move on from the teams that they're currently with that could have been options for Ron Hextall as well. I don't think he was the only option, and I think it would be a little crazy to say that they identified this guy from the start and just kept hammering after him. Is he going to be a yes man? I mean, the fact that he has no NHL experience, I really do think that Ron Hextall is going to have a whole lot of control here over what this guy does.
That's interesting. As we know, Hextall's son played there, and you would say, well, how much connection is there between that and is this something that smells a little fishy to you? I mean, now you've seen the press conference, you heard Hextall, you heard all the participants up there. Do you still kind of scratch your head, or do you say, you know what, now that I've heard everybody talk and put all the pieces together, I like this move, or are you still kind of scratching your head?
Well, asking about a guy who's never coached in the NHL is a little bit like trying to determine an NFL draft 5 minutes after it's happened. I need to see a little bit from this guy before I can, make a decision like that. And is it fishy? I don't think so. I mean, talking to Ron after that press conference was over, saying, how much did you talk to your son Brett about this? And his response was, not as much as I would have liked to. So I don't think that there's a huge correlation there. It's certainly not the old Flyers move of, oh, this guy played here and was either on a Stanley Cup team or played in the organization after they won their championships in 74 and 75. It doesn't reek like a move like that did. It's still a little curious.
Dave, of the guys on this roster, now I know you said we don't know much about the guy, his style of play or whatever he's going to bring to the table. Would you say this is good news for certain guys and not good news for other guys?
Well, I asked Ron about that and kind of saying, whenever there's a coaching change in the NHL, that tends to turn around 180 degrees and go, okay, now it's on the players. And he said that the leash is always kind of short for players, but now they have kind of a disciplinarian in there. Mike Babcock was the big name out there, and he's kind of known as being a hard guy to play for a little bit, and just in terms of his discipline, how much of a leash he gives players, and it sounds like there's a couple similarities in that regard. So I think everybody might have to worry a little bit just because this guy's coming in. But you know what? It'll be interesting to see what happens here, because these guys are actually getting paid, not college players who, we're getting some, free rides to school, but not a whole lot else. This is the kind of guy where you might see guys come in and go, I'm sorry, who? So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it works out, especially in the early going.
It will. And Dave, one thing I'm interested in is, this is a college coach coming up, and does that tell you, or is there an indication that some of the younger players, specifically some of the young defenders they have in this organization, that they will get a longer look and maybe more of a chance, and some younger guys like a Couturier or a Braden Shen that he might connect better with those type of players?
I think he probably will connect better with some of those young players, and we might see some of those young defensemen advance this year, but that might just be part of the process anyway, regardless of who's standing behind the bench. That's certainly something that the Flyers are touting. That's something that Ed Snyder talked a lot about today, saying that this defense in the next couple of years is going to look completely different, which raises some eyebrows a little bit, because does that just mean that these young guys are advancing, or does that mean that there's going to be a yard sale in Fort Lauderdale at the draft next month, or what? But, I do think that he will identify a little bit better with some of the younger players. Chris Vandevelde, talked to him earlier today. He went to the University of North Dakota, played for this guy for 4 years. He wasn't shy about saying, that this guy can be a little tough, and he'll call guys out and let you know if they're not playing well individually or as a team. And I asked him about that stare too, and he said, yeah, he's probably been the victim of it once or twice himself. So I think that was kind of the message that's being sent from above to the players, is this isn't going to be no free rides or anything like that, and it's going to be a lot tougher.
Dave Isaac's with us. The Flyers hired Dave Hakstol as their new head coach. If you want to hear that full interview from earlier today, go to our website, check out the YouTube channel, and subscribe at 97.3 ESPN.com. Dave, overall, you've covered the team, the talent. Did you like this hire? Do you say, you know what, smart hire, good job by them, or is this something that you, in the end, say, you know what, I'm very skeptical and not what I would have done?
In terms of the disciplinarian bit, I think that's something that they did need, but I'm still skeptical of a guy who doesn't have experience in the NHL. I don't think you can just have a style and say, okay, this is going to work at the pro level now. Did it work for Chip Kelly in his first year going from Oregon to the Eagles? Yeah, I guess so. He won the division that year, I believe. So it's not like it can't be done, but I would have a really hard time, endorsing that without actually seeing some kind of results behind that.
Yeah, and I was saying before on our show that in college football and basketball, we follow those two games, and you're familiar with the participants a lot more. If college hockey had a higher profile, you wonder if this was a guy that would be much more well-known and that people would be embracing it more.
Yeah, a little bit. And kind of alluding to what you said earlier, I mean, college hockey is on the rise a little bit. I mean, I think we're closer to like 30% now of guys that are in the NHL that went through college as opposed to Canadian juniors or something like that. And in Hakstol's 10 years at the University of North Dakota, there were 42 NHL draft picks. 8 of them were first-rounders, and Jonathan Toews and Matt Green each won the Stanley Cup 2 times. So it's not like he's, just coming in with this system here that seems to work in college. He's gotten some guys that have gone through there that have been successful and that have made it to the NHL. So I'm not saying that he's completely devoid of talent, but that's another MO. And Vandevelde said it earlier, too, where there were some mediocre teams that he really wrung every ounce of talent out of and made them really great teams.
Well, he may not have been the people's choice, but he was Ron Hextall's choice, and that's obviously what we'll see when the Flyers put this team together. Now the offseason, we'll see how they give him more talent. Dave Isaac at Dave G. Isaac has more on the new Flyers head coach, Dave Hakstol, not to be confused with Ron Hextall or Dave Isaac. Dave, thank you, man.
That's going to give me fits for a long time, man.
It's been tough. It definitely has been tough today, but good job. We appreciate the time, man.
All right, thanks a lot.